Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, Luann Nigara. Luann has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. Luann brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. Today, I'm happy to share with you that I have Warren Pearl, the president of Lefroy Brooks, with me. If you are a regular listener and you are a regular listener who's caught up on episodes, then you already know that Mr. Pearl has invited us to celebrate our second-year birthday of the podcast at his New York City showroom. Details later in the episode. Now, are you familiar with Lefroy Brooks? They are known as the Rolls Royce of bathrooms. Yes, they are. And in the show today, we talk about how they got this name and why they have this name. Lefroy Brooks has showrooms in Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago. In addition to having an outstanding line of plumbing fixtures whose quality is renowned, they are a company who believes and supports interior designers just like you, with their commitment to education and customer service. And talking about customer service, you know which other company has outstanding reputation for this, don't you? Yes, it is. It's our show sponsor, My Doma Studio. Led by CEO Sarah Danielli, her team at My Doma include Marco and Tanya, and they are all there to ensure that you understand every capability of My Doma Studio so you can run your interior design projects from conception to resourcing to communication to invoicing, all easily, productively, and efficiently. Head over to www.mydomastudio.com/a-well-designed-business for your offer as a listener of the podcast. That's www.mydomastudio.com/a-well-designed-business. Okay, I'm very excited to introduce you to Mr. Pearl of Lefroy Brooks. Hey, Warren, thank you so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Well, Luann, it's wonderful to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, we know who has all the thanking to do here, don't we? I'm just going to share with anybody who may not have already heard about it, but a couple of things are happening. Number one, that this podcast is celebrating its second birthday in February.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Number two, its 300th episode is coming up in February. And the third thing is that you have so generously offered to host our birthday party at your showroom in New York City, at the Lefroy Brooks showroom in New York City. So it's really me who's thanking you, Warren.
Well, it's our pleasure. It has to be a two-way street or it's not really good for either of us.
Right? So I'm very excited. And as soon as you guys decided to do this, the first thing I wanted to do was to definitely have you on the show so that not only any of the interior designers that are in the New York, New Jersey area, or I already know designers, Warren, you don't even know this yet, but I had designers email me yesterday saying, is the link live because we're making our plane reservations to get into the birthday party. So,
holy cow.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes. So it's not only the local designers that'll come, but in addition to that, this show is going out to 106 countries or something. So I wanted to make sure that anyone listening really understood what your company was and what your product offering was, instead of just being the place that hosted the podcast birthday party.
Got it.
Okay. So one thing that I have to say right off the bat that is interesting to me is, of course, your marketing director there, Virginia, who's quite lovely, by the way. She sent me over a little story on Lefroy Brooks, and it said in there that you are known as the Rolls Royce of bathroom fixtures and plumbing fixtures. And here's what I want to say about that. When I saw that in the story that she sent over, in the press that she sent over, I said, oh, that's good, because now I really understand, like, right away what's happening with this company and what their product is like and what their clientele is like. But you know what I thought was interesting, because I always do a little bit more research than what I'm given. I found out that you guys didn't coin that someone said that about you.
That's right. Actually, it goes back probably about 20 years ago when we were in business for maybe about 5 years, and I was going around the country to different potential dealers. And one of the dealers, I think it was in Oklahoma, wanted me to visit, and he brought in one of his salespeople who wanted me to meet his boss. And when I met his boss, he said, "I've never heard of Lefroy Brooks." And his employee, the sales manager, said, "Have you heard of Rolls Royce?" And that's where that came from.
Yeah.
That was that interaction.
Well, I just thought that was really spectacular, because it's, when I first read it, I just assumed that you guys coined it. And that was the thing. That didn't hit me as negative one bit. It hit me as, oh, I totally get it. But then when I further researched and I found out that someone else said that of you, that is high praise. And so I think that's really spectacular. So tell us a little bit about Lefroy Brooks. Tell us about your product line. Maybe first tell us a little bit about your philosophy that earned you the reputation of the Rolls Royce of the plumbing and fixtures industry.
Well, actually, the tie-in to Rolls Royce for us was that the factory in the UK in Wolverhampton, way back when we started, used to plate do all the plating, meaning the nickel and chrome plating on the door handles, the mirrors, and everything like that for Rolls Royce, Bentley, Jaguar, all of those high-end English cars. So the Wolverhampton factory actually did plate, and our finishes to this day are very different than everyone else's. If you put our chrome next to anybody else's chrome or our nickel next to anybody else's nickel, people always say, "I don't understand. Why does it look like jewelry?" And that's because we created the plating formulas for Rolls Royce probably 30, 35, 40 years ago. I'm not even exactly sure when they were created at the Wolverhampton factory. And we use those same formulas now that make it slightly different, but it's so rich that that's a comment we get all the time. Why are our finishes so different than everyone else? Our philosophy actually is about the product. If you look at advertising for the plumbing industry, it's generally about mood. It's they do ads that create romance or mystery or any sort of mood, almost like perfume ads, and they don't really focus on the product because the product is all Me Too product, somewhat boring, not very exciting, and very often it's a fad. It's in this year and next year it's out. In fact, I won't mention, but one of the largest manufacturers of plumbing in the United States often brags about how they come out with new styles every year and they get rid of the old styles. It's not really fashion to us. Plumbing is about authenticity, and whether we're creating plumbing fixtures for the 20th century or creating plumbing fixtures for the 21st century, it's all about the integrity of the design. The design and the vocabulary of the design is what we're all about. And when we do advertising, what we're focusing on is our design.
Okay. And I will take a moment here to just mention, since you discussed, just was talking about 20th and 21st century, that you also own Cooper Graham. And what I understand from a little bit of our off-air discussion and what I read is that you're really, like you said, the authenticity of the design and the product having the historical inspiration in the 20th century is what you present through Lefroy Brooks. But when you talk about design and things that you are presenting that are more modern and in the 21st century, designers can access those styles and those products through Cooper Graham.
Correct. Cooper and Graham is actually just coming alive. I started it 3 years ago. It actually takes quite a bit of time to go through design, R&D, tooling until you actually get the product in the real world. And the product is actually coming out into the real world as we speak. It's what I did was I said, what is 21st century design? I don't know what it is. I know what Art Deco is, Art Nouveau. I know what Bauhaus is. I know what Memphis is. What is 21st century design? There's a real question mark there. And no one could answer that for me. So what I decided to do was go to the most successful designers in the world from the United States, Asia, and Europe, and I asked them to design collections of plumbing fixtures and hardware using their interpretation of 21st century design. So the collections that are coming out, and these are primarily large architects who do the 4 and 5 star hotels and high-end condominium projects all over the United States, because that's the trendsetter. When designers for residential generally pick up on the new trends through the hospitality designers that always have to be one step ahead, because they always have to be cutting edge and new, but they also want to be authentic. So we're creating 6 classic 21st century collections, and 2 of them are on the market now, and by the end of the year another 2 will be on the market.
Okay, so you've got, going on both ends. One thing I'm curious about now, listening to you, it's so clear how into it you are, how passionate you are about this. And of course, I say that on the podcast a lot, but that's because thankfully I get to interview a lot of people that are, when success often goes hand in hand with your level of passion for what you're doing. So on one hand, yes, I'm like, oh, you're so passionate, but I think that's sort of the gift of being able to interview such successful people like yourself. But tell me, where did this start for you? I don't often ask that question of the people on the show. I really don't. But I'm curious, what was your background in design and then you specialized in this sort of design, or were you a business person that saw an opportunity and then you just got swept up in and involved in appreciating of the process that you're creating? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh my God. Well, hopefully I don't make this too long. I'll try and make it very abbreviated.
Okay. Don't start when you used to move the plumbing fixtures around in your house when you were a kid, because then I'm going to cut you off.
No, this is almost that old, but it'll go really fast. When I was 17, getting out of high school, don't get scared, it'll go fast. I was a hippie in those days, and a friend of mine said, "You want to be a builder?" I said, "What's a builder?" And he said, we'll do this together. This guy's going to pay us every week. And he had just graduated architecture school. He was a few years older than me. Neither of us knew what we were doing, but we were going to get paid every week. So my first client was Jimi Hendrix. We invented recording studios in the United States. I quickly became very good friends with Andy Warhol, Jasper Johns, Roy Lichtenstein. That was my crowd. You're in the design world. So we actually invented interior renovations with this unknown artist out of New Jersey. He wasn't even a designer. This is back in the mid-'60s. Actually, somebody had seen an addition on the back of a house in New Jersey that was wild and crazy. This art collector in Manhattan wanted to make part of his apartment like that. But in those days, they did decorating. There was no such thing as renovations in the 60s. So Andy Warhol, he was a collector of Warhols, among others. Andy told him that I was doing recording studios, so I met the artist. We built the apartment, which was quite a struggle because the artist didn't know how to do drawings, and he did everything on napkins and sketches. The client was so appreciative that we got it built that about 30 years ago, when they donated it to the Brooklyn Museum of Art, which I heard it's now getting reassembled because they got the money, because the designer has passed away last year or maybe the year before, so they finally got the money. You're going to be able to go to the Brooklyn Museum of Art and walk through the first postmodern work in America, which is a school of design. And I get equal billing to Michael Graves, who was the designer.
Wow.
Then I did apartment renovations. So you fast forward to the mid-'90s, and I discovered by accident Lefroy Brooks used it on some of my jobs. And then because I have attention deficit disorder and I'm sort of always looking for something new to do, I started bringing it into the United States. It was a tiny, tiny company with maybe 6 or 7 SKUs, a sink faucet, a tub filler, a towel bar. I met the owner. I said, let's make this into an international company. We need more designs. Let's do 21st century classics. And he went back into the history books and created Art Deco line, a 1940s line, which is the machine age, a 1950s line, early 20th century. And that's how Lefroy Brooks got started. And it's been nonstop ever since. We're making history, and we're having a lot of fun.
That's incredible. I have to just share with you, a lot of times when I ask a question, I'm sort of aware of the answer I'm going to get, but that I had no idea. And that's an amazing story.
Well, there are a lot more stories connected to that I remember every now and then.
That's it. Oh my goodness, that's so interesting. What a path you have. And what I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of really cool things in there, but I know the thing that grabs me in that entire story is that here you are in the 90s, you're doing apartment construction and renovation. You are randomly having the occasion to specify the Lefroy Brooks product on your jobs, and you see the hole in the marketplace. I love when I meet somebody that does that, because so many of us identify and a hole in the marketplace, but we just stand there and we say, I wish somebody would do this. I wish somebody would bring more of these in. I wish this line would expand. I wish this line would be more readily available in the U.S. But you see it, and then you go and you make it happen. And then now here we are, these 25 years later, this amazing company that's a tribute to it. That to me is always so special when I learn that spark of genius in somebody.
Well, thank you, but it's not quite as well planned as in retrospect. It's very easy to say that, but I just do things from the hip and instinct, and my instinct just went forward with this, and fortunately it's worked out well.
Well, and you know what? Even that, I'm going to tell you, a lot of people need to understand that when you have an instinct, you have a voice about something, to take the courage and follow it. Now, you have to do due diligence. You have to make sure it's a good idea, a good plan, and all of that other stuff. But so many of us ignore our instinct, and we just wait for other people to make something happen. And I just love it. I think it's awesome. I just think it's really terrific. So fast forward us a little bit to today. One of the things that I also noticed that came up over and over again when I was reading about your company, Warren, was the mention of the level of customer service that you provide to the trade. I'm sure to the retail trade as well, but I was very impressed, yes. Right? And so that's speaking one of my love languages. I am a big proponent of customer service at all costs, and to do it at the very best that is possibly, that even more than humanly possible. And I'm seeing that throughout my research of your company as well. Tell us a little bit about how Lefroy Brooks works with the interior design trade.
Well, it's a little bit self-serving. So it's when there are problems on a job, and believe me, plumbing fixtures are not as simple as people think it is to specify. When there are problems on the job, it comes back to us. So long ago, we realized that we need to help our design clients to specify, and we beg them practically to let us help them. Send us their specs or send us what they've specified, and let us walk them through their choices, because often they don't even know they have choices. That gets them very excited, and often they'll specify the wrong thing. So we have dedicated customer service people that absolutely love helping the designers to specify, whether it's a commercial job or a residential job. Now, I've often been called a disruptor by my competitors in the business, and what I'm doing
that shocks
now,
me. I'm just going to say now.
Well, because I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, the bottom line is, if I grew up in the industry and I knew what I was doing, I'd probably do it like everyone else. But I don't know what I'm doing. So what we're doing now with Cooper and Graham is we're trying to figure out how to go to retail market with it. We're already in the commercial market, which is another story. But how do we go to the retail market? Because prices have gotten very expensive, and believe it or not, the price is more than doubled for a retail outlet. So because the retailer has to make money. So if we sell something for $10 to a retailer, they're selling it for $20 or $25. So I have to figure out how to go to market, because I want to bring our prices down so it's available to a much wider range of people. We used to say every billionaire and every movie star used our plumbing fixtures, and that was absolutely true. But now I want to bring it to a much broader market, and the only way to do that is to lower the price, and the only magic way to lower the price is to figure out how to go to distribution and sell it direct, because Amazon is putting a lot of these dealers out of business. So that's a puzzle that we're trying to figure out right now, is how to go to market, how to provide customer service that exceeds everyone's expectations, and be able to bring the price down without touching the quality of the product.
And so are you looking at the interior design trade as one of those resources? Because if once an interior designer is familiar with your product, maybe they go out of their way to visit one of the showrooms in New York City or Los Angeles or Chicago on an opportunity when they're traveling or they're local or whatever. But once they have total confidence then in the product and the service, then they can resource the rest online for every particular project going forward. So is that part of your vision, your model, that you are catering and helping the interior design trade to understand your product model? Because then that way you don't need so many standing showrooms and you don't have to worry about it, right?
You're right on. And the fact is that we'll be happy to sell to an end consumer, but 90+%, I don't know exactly, but surely 90+% of our sales are done because of designers. Designers, right. If someone has a large budget, doesn't have to be a crazy large budget, but they have not a mid-market budget, they'd be fools not to hire a designer, because otherwise they waste their money. Mm-hmm. And it's that design community that we look at as our customers. On a rare occasion, we'll have an actual consumer. But yes, the design market is who we look to specify and sell our product to.
Mm-hmm. And so, for instance, the luxury designers listening to the program today are probably very aware of your product, okay? Now let's talk about some designers that maybe are newer in the industry. Maybe they're recently out of school or they're just a couple of years under their belt. Already we've used the word luxury and high-end and Rolls Royce, so I can feel somebody out there going, this isn't me. I don't know about that, or this, I'm not at that level yet. But what I understand from the frame of mind that you are proactive in being the partner with the designer in the process. And I understand that you often have programs at your different showrooms that are teaching the designers CEUs and so forth, right? We talked about that off air. So the thing is that, do we want to say to a lesser experienced designer that isn't maybe quite swimming in the luxury lane yet to not be intimidated and to come into the showrooms and start to be familiar so that when they have an opportunity, the relationship is built?
Absolutely. And in fact, once I can figure out the formula of how I want to change my distribution model for Lefroy Brooks and for Cooper and Graham, our prices are going to drop to very close to the same price as high-end Kohler. Not Callista that Kohler owns, which is pretty much the same price as us, but high-end Kohler. That'll make it actually available to the upper mid-market buyer. And that's one of our goals. It increases our sales and it gives people more choices, the designers more choices. And yes, we have CEUs that teach the designer how to specify plumbing fixtures.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's a complicated process. I mean, you know that I do custom window treatments and I work with the trade all the time as well. And I liken it to that in that, what happens looking at the faucet isn't really quite the whole story. It's the roughing that goes in behind and all of the other thing. And that's sort of like a drape. There's the pretty drape, but there's what's all the myriad of details that went into the work order that communicated that ultimately to the person who made that drapery. So it is valuable if a designer, new or experienced, has their vendor partner who is open to that hand-holding experience. And I share your sentiment with that. I would much rather have designers working, that I'm working and collaborating with, that are open to understanding just a little bit more details every single time we do a project so that their depth of understanding grows. And then to, like your point is, selfishly, we look to eliminate problems and things that maybe, could have been avoided if there was a little bit more information between the two of us, right?
Absolutely. Communication is the key. I was just in a 5-star hotel where I had to turn the shower on. And remember, the water comes out cold when you first turn it on. The way the shower door swung and the placement of the control, you had to get wet to turn the shower on. It was crazy. And this was a 5-star hotel. So everyone needs help. It's not just the big shot architects. It's the person that's just starting as well.
Yeah, no, it's true. I've had that experience too. Mostly what happens is when I go into nicer hotels like that, it takes me 10 minutes to figure out how to just make the water come out. It's like...
You're exactly right. It's because they use thermostatic mixing valves with volume controls, and they can get complicated. It's much easier for residents because, of course, you learn your own home very easily. But these five-star hotels, which we do an enormous number of, are very complicated.
Yes, it is. And that's another, brings to mind another thing that I read in my research with you, that you really see the trend going towards, what was the word? I have to look at my notes for it, but what's the word? It was like not like all touch, but not touch. What is the word that I saw? I read it. All right, it'll come to me. But it was like you were saying it was gonna it was an article that I read that you were talking about the future is that you won't touch the faucets in the future to put everything on. That you think
eventually everything's going to be electronic, and it's going to be like a thermostat where you dial in the temperature that you want. You can have music, you can have steam showers. Yeah, it's going to be that eventually. That's not good for me because I need my reading glasses to be able to see all of these things. But that is definitely the future. Now, with Lefroy Brooks, and maybe different with Cooper and Graham, we're really Lefroy Brooks is 20th century classics, so we'll never have it there. But we probably will have a collection like that in our 21st century Cooper and Graham.
Yes, and that's a great point too, because Lefroy Brooks really does have that historical sort of reference and everything. Like you mentioned, the different eras that you actually design collections around the different eras. One of the things I have to say, I'm going to say it, and half the designers listening are probably going to think, what? But when you see it, I saw the picture of the faucet collection that is it looks like jets.
That's our 1950s, believe it or not. That's a hood ornament from an Oldsmobile rocket. I believe it's 1957. We did a 1950 series. Now, I'll tell you the truth is everyone oohs and ahs at the 1950 series, but nobody buys it. It's a great talking point, but no one buys it. They're all afraid to have it in their own bathroom. Right. But it's a very exciting, great conversation piece.
I have to say, if you said to me that I have faucets that look like jet airliners or jet, I would be like, whatever, that's crazy pants. But when you see it, it is literally, you automatically just picture like, I don't know, like this jet set lifestyle,
it's right out of the Jetsons. It's literally out of, and look at the automobiles from the 1950s, and that's what it is. That's the era. It's mid 20th century.
And the thing about it is I think why it works when you see it and you don't go ooh and you go ah is because the quality. It really does look like an expensive, like you said, almost jewelry, like a jeweled hood ornament. It really does. And I just thought, isn't that fantastic? And I thought to myself, if I were like one of those super rich guys and I was a pilot, I'd be like, this would be in my man cave bathroom.
Well, that's funny that you said that. The only complete house that we did that I know of in our 1950s line was for John Travolta. I guess he loved it. We sold it through a retailer, and they told us it was for John Travolta. But he's obviously a pilot, and must have fallen in love with it.
See, I wonder if it's his New Jersey house, because that's right here in our backyard, me and you here.
Yeah, this was a very long time ago, probably about 15, 20 years ago. So I think it was someplace out west, like Nevada.
Yeah, he's got a couple of houses, I'm sure. No, but it's interesting, and I could see, we all know that happens in design. It's the thing, the conversation piece that catches somebody's fancy and attention, but so often it's like, well, never mind, I'll just take bland beige. Thank you very much.
Right. Well, our product, we don't have anything that's bland, but it's much more accepted when you're dealing with 1900s white or the Edwardian black or Art Deco. Those are classics that you can recognize, and the elegance doesn't need to be explained. I mean, you look at our plumbing fixtures, and the word elegance and authenticity is what people use just automatically. It's very different. The scale is much larger and than any other fixtures I know of on the market. Not just the plating and not just the way it works technically, but it's the scale. No one comes close to our scale, and that's really, I think, a big contributor towards the luxury definition.
And I agree with you, because having gone through the various websites and looking at the pictures of the products, it truly is that you really do get that sense of old world and of luxury. It's not, I'm just saying to my buddies listening, he's not just saying it because it's his company. So.
Well, I can tell you that there are a lot of plumbing fixtures out there that look phenomenal in pictures, and then you put them side by side with our fixtures, and the most frequent comment I hear is that the other fixtures look like toys by comparison.
Mm-hmm. Right. I can see that. Now, talk to me a little bit more. You mentioned at the beginning of the interview about the marketing that surrounds the way some of the other companies do it and the way that you guys do it. I thought that was a great observation, because you compared it almost to perfume marketing, where it's just the mood of the photograph, but it has little to do with the product in the picture. Talk to us about your marketing and the way that you approach it and what your message is.
Exactly. We want to market our design. We want to say we are classics. We're not fads, and we're about authenticity. So we're very proud of our design. We want to show our design. If you look closely in the real world at most of the other products, they're like toys. They're all the wrong scale. They're very loose, like when you try to work the handles. They're literally like toys. So the way they market it is they market the mood, almost like perfume. I don't really think there's a big difference between perfumes. I think it's the way you market the mood, and that's how you buy it. So we are the only line that I know of that markets ourselves about authenticity, that we have classics and luxury.
It's a great observation. And I love it when somebody says something like that that's so true and literally should have been so plain, but it's like, oh, I never thought about that. Because you're right. What makes you select a particular perfume? It's all of the ad around it. It's the star that's the face of it. It's the way, is this a get up and have a great day and be a great soccer mom perfume? You feel fresh? Or is this a, go out on Saturday night and stand at the top of the rock and, and have a luxurious dinner perfume, right? So
right.
It's pretty interesting that you identified that. And I had not thought about that in relation to other types of fixture companies and their marketing. It's pretty smart. So, all right. So tell us a little bit about these different collections. So you've got, like you mentioned, the collections from the 40s and the Art Deco and different eras. What happens with them, Warren? Are they established, and the collection that represents the 1940s has been the same line of fixtures for the 25 years that you've had the company, or are there
That's
new?
Correct.
It is.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We make classics that are not fads. They don't go out of fashion. The way designers work these days is they will often pull a book off a shelf when a client comes into their office, and they'll say, here's a fireplace as an example from the 1940s. Let's take this design vocabulary and let's carry it through the entire house. We have moldings, we have doors, we have recognizable design vocabularies for the 40s, the 30s, the early 1900s. Let's do an authentic design of a house, roof lines, the tiles that you're using. And that often is lost when you go into the bathroom. The bathroom makes no sense because until we came along, no one produced classics or authentic designs for the bathroom. Now designers actually can carry the authenticity of the design through the house into the bathroom. So Art Deco bathrooms are very common. Mid-century, 1940s. Actually, most your designers know that furniture today that we call modern is a lot of it was designed in the 1940s. Mm-hmm. Our 1940s line, I often say, is the most sophisticated modern line on the market. So yes, we do classics. They don't go out of style. They sometimes get discontinued because they just don't sell. Like the 1950s, it just doesn't sell. The Rockets, we can get it, but it's a long lead time because we don't inventory it anymore, right. Because no one wants to buy it.
Right. So, but that's interesting because you could have said to me, there's different ways, and there were possibly different styles that would have been popular in a particular era, so that you rephrase the line or whatever, but you don't. You stick to the classics. And so how do you address, I'm just going to ask a question, and I'm hearing the answer in my head. I was going to say, how do you address when we're all about the brass and then we're all about the nickel and all about the chrome? But what you're saying is if a designer is dealing with a particular error, that error had a particular finish and style that was for it. I get it.
Well, they didn't have plumbing fixtures in the 1900s, and we have a 1900 series. But what we did was we took the design vocabulary of the
Outhouses didn't have it, Warren.
Right. So we took the design vocabulary, the elements of design, and plumbing fixtures were very limited, even in the Art Deco period. So we took the elements of Art Deco and created collections. Today, designers can find tiles. There's such a selection of tiles and stone to create an Art Deco bathroom, to create a 1940s. The difference between 1930s Art Deco and 1940s is historically we moved into the machine age and everything became much more streamlined, less showy, and it became more like the machine age. So there are great choices for tile that you can actually combine with our plumbing fixtures to create an authentic bathroom throughout the decades of the 20th century and now the 21st century.
It's amazing. And so tell me about how involved are you in the process? So now, of course, we just established that the design for the previous century is set and it's authentic and it's historically true and it's representative of the era. You're now moving into the 21st century with Cooper and Graham. And I heard you say that you're taking the information from the leading hospitality designers in our world. Okay. But it sounds like to me that you're so involved and passionate about it that are you part of the process of the design and what's going to make the line or not, or that's not your cup of tea at all? You just, once it's there, you approve it or you just market it, or where are you at with that? Because you seem very knowledgeable about the design of each era is what I'm saying.
Yes, but I respect the fact that designers are designers for a reason. I'm not a designer. I'm a patron of design, but I am not a designer. So we've selected what are the most successful hospitality designers in the world, and then said, you give us your interpretation of 21st century. And inevitably, they give us three approaches. And then myself and some of my key people will say, okay, we think this is the most marketable. And then they go with it. We will only interfere, so to speak, if it's technically not possible. Because putting plumbing fixtures together, you have to meet codes all over the world. You have to it's much more complicated than people think when they look at the end result, and it takes us a good 2 to 3 years from the time the first drawing gets done to the time it's stocked on the shelves. So we leave it up to the designer. We respect the fact that a designer is as successful as they are because they were born to be designers, and we let them do what they want to do.
Okay. I love it. All right. And now, again, the show is going overseas. So I have huge listenership in the UK and Australia of all of the countries outside of the US and of Canada. I think of them as us, but
right.
So when a designer listening is interested in your product, your locations are U.S. There is a way for them to get them out of the country as well?
Well, we have a very large presence in the UK.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, and Cooper and Graham will go to the UK, but probably in 2019. And we have our own showrooms, really for hospitality, not for retail. But we have our own showrooms in Shanghai, Chengdu, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, and Taipei, because the truth is the hospitality, the five-star hospitality business is booming in Asia, and it's only active in very narrow markets in the United States.
Oh, okay. So what do you mean by that? Like I don't understand. We don't have a booming hospitality market in the U.S. and Canada?
No, it's we have a booming hospitality market at the mid-market price. As an example, we have a great number of Waldorf Astorias in the queue over the next 5, 6, 7 years in Asia because they can get very high room rates. In the United States, there's only a handful of Waldorfs that are going to be built over the next 5, 6, 7 years. That's how far in advance they plan these things. And we're not in any of them. because they can't get the same room rates. So they have to buy much less expensive products, whether it's draperies, plumbing fixtures, whatever. The room rate that you can consistently get defines the level of the materials you can put into the project.
Okay. That's interesting. It's probably a whole nother conversation about why that is.
Probably. I mean, I just was in Hong Kong. I could not get a decent, and I'm not talking about having to go 5-star. I could not get a decent room in Hong Kong for under 600 US a night, and it goes much, much higher.
Wow.
It's the same in Shanghai, in Bangkok. In Bangkok, we just did a 70-story Ritz-Carlton Residences and a hotel in the bottom. And they get New York City rates for selling the residences. The square foot prices that you're seeing in New York City now, they're getting in Bangkok.
Unbelievable. Okay. So, hey, if we have any interior designers that are looking to go into hospitality as a career, they might want to think about going overseas, right? Or getting hooked up with a design firm that has connections and does projects overseas, right?
Absolutely. That's where the hospitality world is. And believe it or not, I would say that 80% of the hospitality, 5-star hospitalities, are probably done by about a dozen design firms worldwide.
Isn't that something? It's every industry has its, I'm going to use the word old boys club, but not that it necessarily implies that it's all men, but it does sort of happen that way, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's because it's too risky. And I don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg. But when you're doing $1 billion project, and a lot of these hotels end up, by the time you get done with the land development, close to $1 billion, you can't take chances on a newcomer. There's just too much money at stake. So you have to have somebody with a portfolio of projects. But how do you get that portfolio? It baffles me. I don't know how this happens.
Right. Thankfully, you and I don't have to figure out how to do that, right?
Right. I get specified by the designers.
Right. You just, need to have them know who Lefroy Brooks is.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
That's it. So that is awesome. I just think it's incredible. And I just love that. I always love when somebody is at the top of their game and does have a product and a service that is worthy of the most discerning client, but that they, like yourself, are looking at the newcomers to the industry and willing to help them, teach them, and reduce that intimidation factor about getting their foot in the door with some of these types of high-end offerings. And of course, that's exactly what we're going to be doing at the podcast birthday party, right, Warren? We're going to get these designers in there and let them see your stuff, right?
Absolutely. And remember, we're first of all, when we do large commercial projects, we bring our prices down because there's large quantity. We work on smaller margins, and we do very large orders to the factory. So we're absolutely price competitive with a company like Kohler, which seems illogical. But as soon as I can change my distribution model, we're going to be head-to-head with high-end Kohler, but it's going to be luxury Lefroy Brooks or Cooper & Graham. We're trying to bring quality design, which costs more for a reason. There's more brass, it's heavier, it's much more expensive plating. There are lots and lots of reasons why it's more expensive. But by eliminating the middleman, we're going to bring our prices way down.
That's amazing. That is because that's the truth. Every single one of us knows, every designer listening knows that when something is of quality, it's worth more money. Do you know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter if it's a drape, if it's a rug, if it's a plumbing fixture, but to think that you're working on a model that will give us access to the Rolls Royce of plumbing fixtures at a more, affordable level is a pretty cool thing.
Right. Well, I think so. The way we sell, one of our selling points for hotels is if you go into hotels a year after they've been opened, the handles, like the lever handles on the sink faucets, are all out of whack because people are pretty rough with plumbing fixtures in a hotel setting, but they're also so lightweight and so flimsy, it's very easy for them to go out of alignment. Pretty damn hard to get a Lefroy Brooks or a Cooper & Graham to go out of alignment because it's so much heavier that when it's tightened down, it stays in the position it's supposed to stay.
That's great. That's terrific. That's amazing. Are there hotels in the U.S. that you can think of that, well, I did read on the website that your fixtures are in the Plaza and the Waldorf and the Claridge's in London and the Grand Hyatt in Moscow. Are there other hotels that, how about like Las Vegas? Are there hotels there that feature your fixtures, or just something if somebody's listening, like, I've been in that hotel?
Yes, but I don't really remember the names. Right now, I know Cooper and Graham is going into Century Plaza in Los Angeles, which is a large job. It's residences and an existing old hotel that's being renovated. We're in the finest hotels all over the world. I don't even know the names anymore. I don't pay attention.
I know, too much. You have too many other things of importance to do in the day, right?
It's some commonplace to be in these hotels, so I really haven't paid attention.
Okay, cool. All righty. Well, I'm really looking forward to being at your showroom in just a couple of weeks and having all of our friends come and help us celebrate the podcast birthday party, help us celebrate its 300th episode, and really get to know and see your products up close and in person, and to experience the quality that you are, putting out there in this genre.
I love it, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you so much for taking the time today to tell us about your company, Warren.
My pleasure.
Very interesting man, isn't he? How about starting out and working with Jimi Hendrix and being friends with Andy Warhol? Pretty crazy, right? Now, as cool as that is, you know me and you know what I really loved. I loved that he took action when he saw a need in the marketplace. Warren downplayed it a little bit, but you and I know exactly what it takes to open a business, to go out on your own. It's scary. It takes putting yourself on the line. It takes belief in what you're doing. And look, 25 years later, he has created not one, but two dynamic companies that are at the top of their game in their field. As he described, Lefroy Brooks creates plumbing fixtures whose design complement any decor from any era, from the early 20th century all the way to the end. And then Cooper and Graham take it from there with elegant, forward-thinking designs for your interiors that evoke 21st century. I love it. Now, do you want to see these beauties in person? Well, they have showrooms in LA, Chicago, and New York City, but I'd love it if you've come to the New York City showroom this February 21st, 2018, and help us celebrate our second birthday of the podcast and our 300th episode, which will air that exact day. Thank you to Warren and his generosity. We will have wine and refreshments. We will have a beautiful space, and we'll have each other from 6 o'clock to 8:30 p.m. Please use the Eventbrite link to RSVP, which you can find at www.luannigara.com/party. That's www.luannigara.com/party. The space is really, truly limited. And the thing is, if we are going to go by any indication of what we had last year at the birthday party, you definitely have to RSVP. None of us wants to turn anybody away, but if it does come to that, it's going to come down to whether or not you've RSVP'd. Now, bring as many designer besties as you want, for sure. There's no limit as long as you have an RSVP, okay? So now, if you're following me on Facebook, and I hope you are, that's at A Well-Designed Business, you already know that I go live a couple of times a week from Facebook, from my car rides with Luann. It's all very casual and really goofy. But mostly what I'm doing is, if something comes up in a coaching session that I've had with a designer, or I see something in a Facebook group that gets me thinking about something in your business that you're struggling with, then I usually go live from the car and talk about it, okay? The other thing is, though, that I always go live from any events that I'm attending or hosting. And so if you are too far away to get to our birthday party, but you don't want to miss out on the fun, definitely go over to Facebook/A Well-Designed Business. Hit the subscribe and hit the notified when I go live button, because I'm definitely going to be posting live from this party with all the shenanigans that are going to be happening there. So you won't miss it, even if you are listening from far off places in the world. Okay. Now, before I go, two things. I just want to say thank you for joining me today. I hope that you learned something. And the second thing is, I hope that if you learned something, or a sentence or a thought or something that Warren said or we talked about struck a thought in your mind, an aha moment, an inspiration for something that you can apply to your business. I want you to not just think about it. I want you to act on it. Okay? So take a moment. Did you get an idea? Did you get an inspiration? Carry it through. take a moment to think about it and really bring it to fruition on how and what you can do in your business to help you be more profitable. All right? Don't just write these things down. Don't just think about them. Do them, okay? Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.